Hello everyone and welcome to Ask Better Questions, the podcast where we delve into the nuances of leadership and personal development. I'm your host Peter, and today we're going to explore setting up for success, how we introduce ourselves to a new team, what to do, what not to do. And for those of you who are new here, I'm Peter Adams. I have over 20 years experience in leadership and consulting. I'm a published author and a speaker in the leadership space, and my mission is to help excellent leaders become exceptional leaders through a better mindset. But before we start today's episode, I'd like to take a minute to thank our sponsor, Colour4 Solutions. Colour4 Solutions offer leadership training for those people who have reached a ceiling in their leadership journey and want to achieve more without dedicating substantial time and effort. Now, I want to start today's discussion with an anecdote or a story about one of my most spectacular failures as a leader. I started with a new company that had just started a new division. I had just come off the back of 7 consecutive success stories. So they knew they were hiring quality, and I knew what was expected of me and what team I was joining, and I even knew some of the people who I'd worked with previously who had worked for me previously. So it was all lights were green. I knew this was going to go well, or at least I believed so. And I had the opportunity to, during the transition period before I actually started with the company, meet my team, introduce myself, which I'm going to go into how I did that further down at the tail end of this episode, and go through the steps on how I've done that and how I recommend that everyone does that. But also privately meet with my direct supervisor, my boss, who was one of 2 divisional heads in the business that I was joining. I would be reporting through to him, and how everything went off the rails. And I guess it was a case of having come off 7 successful management roles and thinking that I was pretty good at what I did. I forgot humility, and I forgot the ability to work with people who are not good at their jobs. There are times when even the best of us are going to have to work for people who don't necessarily know what they're doing or are not bringing their A game. A lot of people I've worked for have been brilliant, absolutely brilliant at what they do, and that I've been very fortunate to work with those people. But I've also been very fortunate to work for some people that are just terrible at their jobs, or have been brilliant and then have stopped being brilliant, have made the effort, have made the conscious decision not to put the effort in and not to continue their good leadership. Mostly people dialing it in. And we all know those people that dial it in. And in this particular role that I went into, I was working for somebody who, at one point or other in their job, in their career, had been very, very good at what they did. Possibly not the world's best, but were reasonable. They knew what they were doing. At this particular role, they had decided that they were going to dial it in and just hope that people such as myself would bring my A game, which I did. I certainly did, and carry this team and others through to success. Every single person who reported through to this manager threatened to quit within the first 6 months of us being there. Every single one of us. And every single time this manager had convinced everyone to stay on and that things were on the up and up and things were going to improve. This particular manager had previously been very, very good at their role at other companies, had not taken an interest in any particular member of staff, people that reported directly to them, or anyone else in the division. Knew a handful of names, and mostly in a negative light, in terms of knew who the problems were and didn't know anyone that was a good performer or anything like that. Did not come into the office and say hello to anyone, and basically sat at their desk, flew in, flew out, and did meeting after meeting after meeting with senior management teams. Now that is fine in terms of that is a role and that is something that you can do. But the level of interest that they had in managing the people that were involved in provision of service at this particular organization was not registering on anyone's meters, least of all their own. So they were very, very much disinterested in the actual performance of their staff until they were required to report that up the chain, at which point everything became an issue, and they then became active and involved in greeting people in a negative light. So every time that they would say something directly to a staff member, it would be a backhanded compliment or a reminder to do better. And that is not a conducive way to run any sort of an organization. So being the person I am, who had spent a lot of time getting my team up to speed and performing as well as they could do in the circumstances, and also having a lot of issues with the way in which the organization as a whole was bringing this team online, I was feeding information to my manager, this particular person, and that information I discovered was not going anywhere. So I was then back channeling that information to other departments and other people, and making sure that I would CC my boss in these back channels so that they knew what I was doing to make changes and keep the team on track. Effectively, this person then went to their managers and said, look at what we're doing. These are all the steps we're taking to improve performance and the like, but continued to be a negative influence on my team. So I found time and made time with this person to let them know that the impact they were having on the team was a not good one, a negative one. And I worded that in such a way as to say, all right, so if we were trying to improve morale and improve performance, what are suggestions that he had? And he came up with some fantastic suggestions, and I suggested we engage with those suggestions, and then said, if it was a case of, avoiding negativity, maybe we should try that for a week or two. Now, we agreed in principle to do that, and then he continued the behavior. So I've then brought this up to him politely, and then I've brought it up to him again and again. And over the course of 2 weeks, I brought it up half a dozen times. At the end of that 2 weeks, he's gone, well, it's not working, so it's not going to happen. At which point, the negativity continued. None of the new ideas that we talked about actually happened. So I've regrouped with him and suggested that we try again to brainstorm ideas. He's dismissed the idea, and we've moved forward with negativity. At which point, this is having a negative impact on my well-being. I was dealing with a lot of the employees, and the stress that they were under was incredible for the role that they were doing. They were in a emotionally draining and demanding role, and they were having some very difficult times, both personally and professionally, and I was having to deal with that both inside and outside of work hours. This I communicated to my direct line boss, and I also communicated it to the head of HR at the time, thinking that this would be communicated through to those people that matter. It wasn't, but that is neither here nor there. For the case of the story here, and I'm trying to keep this as high level as possible, the negativity in the office was significant. It made it so that it was very difficult for everyone to do their jobs, and it made it almost impossible for me to turn up and be motivated to do mine, which was motivate my team to do better and to continue to do better and improve day on day. And I lost interest. And thinking back on this makes me humble, because I didn't detect that I had dropped the ball, that I had lost interest. I continued to stay on longer than I should have. I should have called it and quit. Not threatened to quit. I should have quit. And I didn't quit because I was invested with my team. And the lack of support that this particular company and this organization had given to everyone in that organization, including my boss, was non-existent. There was no support, and it was an absolute pardon the language, but a excrement show. It was very, very poorly run, poorly led at all levels. And that meant that some of the people I worked with, some of the people at my level and some of the people more senior were brilliant at their jobs, but they were not able to lead in an environment where there was no leadership at the top, and consequently everyone was dropping the ball and it was terrible. I ended up leaving the job at the 11th hour. It was a case of I needed to move before I was pushed. And I believe it did probably more damage to my team the way in which I left. And I feel disappointed because it could have been a more professional handover than it was. In previous roles, I had worked for people that did not have the skills to do the roles they were in. But it was acknowledged on my way in, and I would carry those people, and I would manage upwards if I needed to. In this particular role, that was not a possibility, and that is one thing that I can identify there and say, all right, so how does this come back to making ourselves known to our teams and setting up for success? Okay, knowing what it is you're walking into, knowing what it is that you're supposed to do, and knowing that when you identify that you can't deliver those things, stop, either reassess and get the ability to do those things, and if that is not a possibility, quit. Yes, winners never quit. Quitters never win, and winners never quit is an old adage. It's also incorrect. The winners quit all the time. But when something isn't working, stop doing it. It is not the case. It is very much the Native American, when you discover you are riding a dead horse, dismount is the best policy. That is all there is to it. When you are riding a dead horse, dismount. It's the only policy. Do not form a committee. Do not try and stimulate a dead horse. Do not get more people to push or get resources for a dead horse. It's a dead horse, okay? If you don't already have the resources and the horse is dead now, there is no better policy than to dismount. I've now learnt that. I've also learnt that humility is one of the key aspects. And this all came to a head when I introduced myself to some new people that were coming through training. And I was real with them. I was honest with them. And I said that there was a lack of support in the organization. That did not go over well all the way up the chain. And I pointed out that it was entirely true, but it was not what they wanted communicated. And I've gone, okay, well, when it comes to what it is that you want communicated to the organization and as a whole, then you guys need to spend more time communicating that all the way down. It was not long after I had that conversation with some new starters that I left the organization. And it was probably not that long thereafter that they were planning on making me leave the organization. So realistically, that happened, not my proudest hour. But that said, how do we set up? And I'm bringing this back to how we introduce ourselves to teams. And preparation is key. Gathering the information, crafting your message, that's par for the course. But making the introduction, I've seen it done terribly poorly. I've seen it, hi, I'm your new X. You will address me as X, Y, or Z, and coming in overly harsh. Like the extremity of, I will kick you so far up your proverbial that your teeth will shatter, is not exactly the best way to introduce yourself as a compelling leader. It will scare people senseless, absolutely. And have I had drill sergeants that have done that to me? Absolutely. Is that the role of a drill sergeant? Yes. Is it the role of a leader? Not in most instances, no. Unless you are said drill sergeant, you don't need to introduce yourself like that. In fact, I've seen much scarier drill sergeants introduce themselves much nicer. But the introduction should be started with confidence. You should introduce yourself. There should be a personal touch there. you need to acknowledge the team. You need to acknowledge that there is a goal there. So what I would start with, and this is how I do it every time I join a new team. Hi, everyone. My name is Peter, and I'm thrilled to be joining the team as you're new insert my title here. I generally put a personal touch in there. I've been with the organization for X amount of time. I've been in this space for X amount of years, and I've done this sort of thing many times before. I've been following the team's impressive work on, and I'd mentioned something specific here, and I'm excited to contribute to your continued success. Now, in that section there, sometimes I would go, I've been following the team's performance. And look, I'm really excited for the possibility to contribute to your success. That is what I would say in the instance where I've been asked to come in and improve the performance of a team. So it's not always you're impressively working at the moment and I'm going to contribute to your continued success. Sometimes it's just we're going to continue. I've been watching the performance and I'm excited to contribute to your success. Now, following on from that, I come from, and I would mention past experience there, where I would also highlight some relevant skills. So far we've done a, hi everyone, this is who I am. I've been following your performance and I'm excited to contribute to your success. And this is a background for me. I come from this, and this is what I've done previously. And finally, I'd wrap it up. And this generally takes 2 to 3 minutes. I've done it in 30 seconds for a team where I've just introduced myself and gone, yep, I'm really excited to be part of this team. Really looking forward to it. I'll be meeting with each of you personally over the next 2 weeks for a quick 30-minute catch-up. That has been enough to let them know who I am, what I do, and so on and so forth. I like to wrap it up with a looking forward to working with you all. My goal is to, and I would mention a broad goal for the team, improve everyone's performance and make you all achieve and become the best you can be. And I believe that by working together, we can achieve great things. Please don't hesitate to ask any questions you may have, and I look forward to getting to know each of you individually much better. I guess the tips here are, if you're following this sort of a 30-second intro, it should be probably no more than a couple of minutes, unless you're going into some great anecdotes that are relevant. But the important key tips here are be authentic, be positive and enthusiastic, be concise, and schedule some one-on-ones as a follow-up after this. So the goal here is to create a positive first impression. Now, that doesn't have to be a 30-minute stump speech. It doesn't need to inspire. It just needs to let people know this is who you are, this is why you are where you are, and this is where you want to take us. And that's fine. It doesn't have to instill fear. It doesn't have to inspire. It just needs to let the team know where you're at. Your job here is not inspirational. Your job here is informational. Your inspiration comes later, once you are embedded in the team and they know where you are at and what you are trying to achieve. You can mention the goals. Absolutely. That my template here does mention a goal and says, hey, this is where we're all pulling for. This is what we want to do with the team. So it's about opening the door to collaborate and build that stronger relationship with the team. It's not about doing it in a 30-second speech. It's not about doing it in a 30-minute speech. It's about opening the door to be able to do it over the next coming weeks and months. So what have I seen? I've seen the 30-minute drone-on forever speech, their entire life story be given to my team from various managers that have come in and taken over from me. I've seen people completely tear it up. I've seen people do an amazing job, better than I would do. But I've also seen people who have completely missed the mark or failed to do one. They've just sort of shown up one day and gone, yeah, I'm the new leader. Sit down, shut up, and pay attention. And that is entirely saying to your team, I have a role. It's more important than yours, and you don't need to know who I am or You just need to follow orders. People are not robots. Even in the military people will tell you they're not robots. They will follow the orders given to them, absolutely, because that's the training. However, they will follow the orders much better, with a lot more ease if they respect the person giving the order. And there are things that need to happen to grease that wheel. I've seen senior management teams completely ignore or dismiss their best employees because they don't want to be bothered being leaders. They don't feel it's necessary. And it's a huge shame. It's the source for so much pain in organizations that something really needs to be done. You really need to impress upon everyone in your organization that you need to actually recognize that everyone in the organization works as a team. It's not it can be competitive, absolutely, but you need to be able to work together. So anecdotally, you've heard my story of where I fell over, but I've also seen other people come in and absolutely own it, absolutely kill it. I've also seen most of the time people sit on the fence and kind of coast through with a 5-minute presentation of this is what I'm doing and whatever else, which eyes glaze over. The ideal introductory speech should be about 30 seconds to 2 minutes. It should have the opportunity to catch up with everyone later, and you can, of course, have a Q&A afterwards. You can have a quick, hey, if anyone's got any questions for me, I'll take them now, or we can handle them offline afterwards. In any case, this episode has gone over time, so I like to keep these things short. So we will wrap this up here. Until next time, keep asking better questions. And remember, leadership is not about having all the answers. It's about asking the right questions. Take care, and we will see you next week.